Hangar One Publishing. Books that explore the unknown.
They're after my story.
Legends leap off the pages of our books.
You think you're the only one? They're under my heels too.
From UFOs to cryptids, Bigfoot and beyond.
Who's behind all this?
Hangar One Publishing, where every legend is revealed.
It's Hangar One Publishing. They're unraveling all of our mysteries.
Dive in, real videos, sights and sounds with our immersive book technology.
I guess their secrets are out now.
But in the best possible way.
From Bigfoot tracks to galactic trails, we cover it all.
We should get out of here before it's too late.
You're right, let's plan.
Escaping reality? Dive into ours. Hangar One Publishing, revealing the universe's best-kept secrets, one book at a time.
Hesitation coming around again. Termination, more than we might have been. In a world of unbelievers, there is no way of getting across.
Welcome to the Discover Sasquatch podcast on the Untold Radio Network. Now join host and cryptid investigator Chris Reinhardt as he delves into the mysterious world of the cryptid phenomenon. From eyewitness accounts to scientific theories, we will explore the evidence and uncover the truth behind some of the most enduring legends together. Please subscribe, share the show, leave a nice comment, and give us a thumbs up. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, X, and remember this show is downloadable everywhere that great podcasts are found. And now your host of the Discover Sasquatch podcast, Chris Reinhardt.
Disclaimer. Content is for entertainment only. Listener discretion and responsibility apply. The network is not liable for listener actions or consequences.
Hello, my friends in Sasquatch land. And we're back yet again on Thursday night. Discover Sasquatch is back in the studio at Untold Radio Network. We are in the chair. We are in charge for your next hour. So strap in, get a nice cold beverage, and relax, because we have another great show for you tonight. We have Mr. Thomas Sewid from Washington State. I'm sure you guys have all seen him on most of the TV programs and followed what he does. This is going to be a great show, learning, tribal aspects on the Sasquatch, and I'm looking very, very, very forward to it myself. So, before we get this show started, though, we have lost a big part of the Galista community that I am part of. Miss Christy Leslie has passed away. Little spitfire, little redhead, and what a great lady. And she was always there for support and everything. And I'd love to dedicate this show to her tonight. I've never got to meet her. I was hoping to get to meet her this year at the meet and greets down in Alabama if I made it, and but I never got the chance. And what a sweet lady. So this show is dedicated to Miss Leslie. So it's very sad on that aspect. So what else do we got to report? That's it. I think that's enough. We're gonna have her in her memory for this show, and we have a great guest. And so without me messing things up here, I'm a little choked up over it, to tell you the truth. I talked to her a lot, and she's very, very sweet. But a spitfire for sure. So without further ado, let's bring out our guest from Sasquatch Island himself. And we got another first this week, and I'll let you tell him. Last week we had our guest was his first podcast. This year we have another guest that is a first that's never been done before on the podcast. So I appreciate that from Mr. Thomas Sewid. So here he is, ladies and gentlemen, from Sasquatch Island, Mr. Thomas Sewid.
Hi, thanks for inviting me onto your show. Come to Sasquatchlegend.com in Port Washington, and I brought my buddy Biggie here along with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. So this is the first podcast that Biggie has been on live, correct?
That's right. We've done a few TikToks in the last couple of months, but this is the first time we've done a live podcast. So making history.
All right. So I want to thank you so much for taking time. I know you're a busy man. You actually closed up your shop an hour early for us tonight, and that's greatly appreciated. My group of people that come here every week are, I'm sure, are very happy to see you, and they are greatly appreciative of you being here. So thank you again on that.
Thanks a lot.
So we'll get things started. You want to give just everybody just like a little background bio on yourself and how you got introduced to Sasquatch?
Okay. First off, Kelakasla, greetings. My name is Thomas Sewid. I'm a member of the Kwakwaka'wakw First Nation or Indian tribe from northern Vancouver Island, British Columbia. My mother is a full-blooded Cree from the Central Plains of Canada, so I'm half and half, but I was born and raised on the West Coast and brought up with the Kwakwaka'wakw culture and heritage. Born in a small island town known as Alert Bay or the Numgeese Indian Reserve. And it's a unique place even to this day because it's, as far as a town, a community, it has the highest concentration of wood carvings of Sasquatch on Earth. We Kwakwaka'wakw call the female Sasquatch Dzoonakwa. And Dzoonakwa is the highest rank crest that a chief and his family can have title to. So like a Rolex watch or a Mercedes Benz, you showcase your Dzoonakwa crest to proclaim how wealthy your family is, your chief especially. And when a chief dies, they'll carve a memorial totem pole. We just call them memorial poles. And they'll have many crests of that chief telling a story about who he was in his bloodlines, where they come from, great things he might have done being a hunter or a fisherman. And it's like a storyboard, but it's a memorial totem. But in Alert Bay, the graveyard, when I was a young kid, there was 5 and still standing, 4 of them, these memorial poles with the bottom figure, which is the most powerful position on a pole, of a sleepy-eyed ogress with large breasts, puckered up lips, like that. And I knew it was Dzoonakwa, the wild woman of the woods, the female Sasquatch, the highest ranked crest. But to me, as a kid, being brought up, being told, you behave yourself, Tommy. Otherwise, if you act up or you're lazy, you get in fights, you don't do your schoolwork, at nighttime, Dzoonakwa, the Sasquatch, is not allowed to touch you if you behave. But if you misbehave, she's going to come at night with big hairy arm and reach in to where you're sleeping, grab you, rub spruce pitch like tar in your eyes from the spruce tree so you can't open them and you're blind. And she's going to throw you in her basket on her back or stuff you into a sack like a potato sack made of cedar bark fibers. And she's going to carry you deep into the forest, up a mountain to her invisible home. That's why we can't find Sasquatch. And that's where she's going to boil you up and eat you. So that was our boogeyman, the Dzoonakwa, the Sasquatch. And you'd see it in the memorial poles in the graveyard. You'd seen it when you went up the hill to the ceremonial, what we call Kilksi Big House, the ceremonial building that is front of it is all painted with, in Alert Bay, it was Yagis, the underwater sea monster, and Magenoch, killer whales. But it was in the shadow of the world's tallest totem pole and still is. And at the bottom was a big Dzoonakwa carving. And when you walked into that 2 doors of the Kilksi, the ceremonial big house, even to this day, at the far end where the chiefs and the men sit that sing and drum on the cedar log, there's 2 house posts standing. And at the base each one has a Dzoonakwa, the Sasquatch. And when you go to those ceremonial big houses, as we still do to this day, but as a kid, I remember it, you'd see the chiefs having their potlatches, or the tribe would be performing for the mini cruise ships that used to come in when I was a kid, and they do a native dance performance, drumming, singing, all of our regalia, the masks and the regalia that goes with the masks, the button blankets and everything. But you always will see Dzoonakwa, the carved masks, the fur regalia. And when you go to a potlatch, sometimes they would have a basket on their back with a baby in it, like my family, or they'd have an empty basket depicting how they'd grab the misbehaving children and throw them in there. Some families would have a baby one running on the floor. Every family has a different interpretation, story, and song that's telling you about an ancestor who witnessed seeing a Sasquatch. And this is what they saw, be it a couple hundred years ago or thousands of years ago. So pretty amazing being a Kwakwaka'wakw tribal member, because traveling through Sasquatch Island, which I call North America, I've interacted with many different Indian tribes, and I'm proud to say that of all the tribes I've met and studied to date, the Kwakwaka'wakw, mine, have the closest tie to the Sasquatch, the Dzoonakwa. And that's what I bring out, is the cultural aspect. I do art. The store is filled with t-shirts and coffee mugs and tumblers and shower curtains and mats with my Dzoonakwa designs that I've done. And I think I have 12 different designs on the floor here. And then, of course, people come in, and now that they know through social media and podcasts and videocasts that I'm here in the store managing it, but I lived a lifetime in the bush. I was a commercial fisherman for over 45 years, traveled the British Columbia coast extensively, go to communities that you can only access to this day by float plane or boat. And I would also interact with logging camps and talk to the loggers, and in the modern days, the fish farms that are out there and the workers that live on those float houses with all the fish pens. And I would always ask, what do you know about Sasquatch? You ever hear them? Ever smell them? Ever see them? And then I'd get all that information. But most of all, through a lifetime, I was able to talk to people like the Haida and hear about the Gogich, the Coast Salish, and hear about Hawakwus and other tribes that call their Sasquatch books or books, and the list goes on. So I was able to experience something, and still do, that most people will never get a chance of doing, interacting with those Indian tribes and homesteaders out in coastal British Columbia and hearing all of their accounts of Sasquatch, their beliefs, their perspectives, their culture pertaining to Sasquatch with the indigenous people. So that's why I share the way I do, is to educate everyone about what I know about Dzoonakwa Sasquatch.
Right. Can you elaborate a little bit on some of the rituals that you guys practiced when in the big the facilities, or whatever I don't know the correct terminology for where you guys gathered.
Well, our gathering out here in where I'm from, northern Vancouver Island and Central East, we call it potlatch. And chief will call a potlatch for a memorial potlatch for family members, and there might be a potlatch for a marriage ceremony. Back in the old days, they'd have feasts and potlatches just to celebrate life. But it's more than that, because when you're born into a tier position. I belong to the Hamatsa Society, which is the most sacred society and the most powerful position just beneath the chieftains. And our society is a secret society. There's so much that we can't share with the modern world this day. Even our other tribe members, we can't share with them what the Hamat Society, in the depth about it, is all about. But there is books out there, and there is Kwakwaka'wakw and Lehwata tribe members who, talk about the Hamatsa Society, but they only go so far, because we know, and communicating with one another, that there's things that are always going to be secret. But put it in a nutshell, we were equivalent to a Secret Service agent to a prime minister, a president, world leader. And even in the old days, back when we had warfare, the Hamatsas would always be around the chief. And we were, Hamatsa translates to meaning the cannibal society. And our I guess you could say the thing we follow is Kwakwaka'wakw, the cannibal from the north end of the world, who has chipped teeth and fierce eyes, and he's so sacred. There's very few depictions of him, be it regalia. I seen a mask and black and white photo of Kwakwaka'wakw. In my territory, there's a pictograph, a painting about that big on a rock wall at a sacred place. And I seen a bentwood cedar box that had a depiction of Kwakwaka'wakw, but he's so sacred and powerful that we don't sort of elaborate on his image and depict it because it's part of that secret society. But in our nation, there's other societies. Sea Youth Warriors back in the day, the double-headed sea serpent, Wolf Society, Swan Society, which are the matriarchs, the female, and the list goes on. So like we know about people being miners and metallurgists and doctors and generals and warriors. That's what our societies were all based upon. And when you study the Kwakwaka'wakw Nation, you're going to go to the internet, go to the umista.com, umista.ca, and that's our cultural center and our Kwakwaka'wakw cultural website. And it'll just blow you away how intricate and in depth the Kwakwaka'wakw and Lekwata tribes were, and we still are to this day. And we're a stubborn lot. Like in Canada, they banned the ceremony of potlatch back in 1884, 1885, and it wasn't legalized again until I believe 1960 period. But during that banning of the potlatch era in 1921, they sent 26 of our tribe members, chieftains, hamatsas, and matriarchs to prison for breaking the anti-potlatch law. But our people would hide the potlatch. They would disguise it as Christmas ceremonies in the Victorian age. We would sing Christmas carols and instruments playing and gifts being given out and wrapped packages. But it was potlatch goods, the gifts that we would give, like fish oil and pieces of copper and you name it. And we would disguise up until the 1960 our potlatches so that when 1960 the Second Indian Act of Canada was written and it was legal to potlatch once again, we brought it out from hiding. And as we say, Batustu, to rise again, began. And more Dzoonakwa masks were carved, more fur regalia were made for those masks. And the families to this day celebrate the great ceremony of potlatch. And you will always see the Sasquatch, Dzoonakwa female, being performed on the dance floor. But at those memorial potlatches, when a chief dies and 3 years or more after his death, like my father, when he passed a year and a half ago, I'm in mourning right now for another year and a half or so. But what I'm doing is accumulating wealth. And after 3 years, I'll have a potlatch, a memorial potlatch from my father. And being a native artist, I'll probably carve a memorial pole for him and put crests on there that tell a story of my father when he was alive and where his bloodlines come from. And when we have that potlatch, we will have the Dzoonakwa performed along with all of our other societies and everything from the natural animals and the animal kingdom to the ghost world to the supernatural world with Thunderbird and other things. And at the end of the celebration, and I'm going to be feeding these people that come, probably well over 1,000, like every person does when they host a potlatch. At the end of the evening ceremonies, late in the night, sometimes 2, 3, 4 in the morning, they'll put plastic tarps on the dirt floor of the big house, and thousands of dollars of gifts that were accumulated will come out and be put on those tarps. And the family of the hosting the potlatch will give those gifts to everyone to thank them for witnessing their celebration of potlatch that might have taken place 18 or 20 hours. And at a potlatch, when there's a high rank chieftain like my cousin Harold, he's a Queek, a clan territorial hereditary. When his dad died, 3 years later, he hosted a memorial potlatch for his father. And at the end of it, well, all the gifts were given out and everything. The Helicum chief speaker grabbed a mask that was a Sasquatch, but a male one, had a mustache and a goatee, and he put it on his face and they tied it. And he said, does anyone contest that Harold, in his native names, Sewid, has not done his obligations to have a memorial potlatch for his father? No one contests, of course. And then he dances when the drums are being pounded, which is a hollow cedar log, and wooden batons being pounded on it. The house, just like being in a drum, is booming. And in deep baritone song, those 20, 30 men are singing around that central fire. My cousin danced with that male Sasquatch mask, male Dzoonakwa. There's a name for it. I just can't remember what it is right now. But anyway, it's in our translation, it means to be touched by the Sasquatch. It means he's now, when he takes it off, will always be recognized as a Queek, a clan territorial hereditary chieftain, because he was touched by that Sasquatch mask and he danced with it. So that's how tied we are to the Sasquatch. And other ceremonies, I'd be talking here till tomorrow morning if we went into every society. But that gives you the gist of what a potlatch is all about and just how structured the Kwakwaka'wakw tribes are.
Well, that is very, very interesting. I'm very impressed. How far back does the history go? How far back does your history go? Records?
To the dawn of our creation, when the creator came and created the animal kingdom and the planet, and then he left and came back and realized he'd made a mistake. The animals were over harvesting one another, warfare, disease, starvation, because there were no balance. So he went to the north end of the world and met with his brother, the transformer, who would fly across the world with his magic, drumming and singing. He would come across an animal, natural or supernatural, and with his magical chanting and drumming, he would transform him after many hours to my Nuyum. My first ancestor was a Kulus, cousin to the Thunderbird, and it had a giant body of white feathers with blue flecks throughout, a big bill like an eagle, feathered horns of white, blue lines on his bill. And when Transformer came across him on top of this mountain on Guilford Island above our ancestral village of Absegyu, he told that Kulus to fly and land on a beach. And when he did his magical drumming and singing for many hours. And later on, he said, now grab your chest of down and tear it open. And when he did, out stepped a very sweaty man, my grandfather said. And Transformer said, who are you? And he said, I will be called Sewid, meaning paddling towards a chief giving potlatch. And that is my Nuyum, my first ancestor, where my family comes from. And we come from the Kulus. And it comes from Chechame and his brothers and everything else, but that's too complex for the listeners. But it tells you that my bloodlines come from the Kulus. And if you go to southern Washington State, just above the Columbia River to Ariel, Washington, just across the highway, I-5 from Kelso, Washington, where they had the conference a 3 weeks ago, Sasquatch conference, you'll go to the Laluska Foundation, where part of my adopted family has a cultural center that they share the Kwakwaka'wakw culture and other indigenous tribes culture with school children and others, and have done that since the early 1970s. But outside their museum is a welcoming pole with a Dzoonakwa with outstretched arms and puckered lips. And that's above it is a Kulus, the cousin of the Thunderbird, with a human painted on its chest. And it's Laluska, who is no longer with us, but Chief Laluska, the adopted family member of mine, when he carved that, he was depicting that I'm from the Sewid house. We have rights and title to the Dzoonakwa crest, which is very powerful, and we are very wealthy. And above it is the Kulus with the human. That's where we come from. Our bloodlines, the Nuyum, is Kulus. There you go.
That is very, very, very. And to remember all that, and that's just huge, huge part of the heritage. And growing up with Sasquatch being part of your heritage, well, what happens when you first saw or first had your first interaction with a Sasquatch? Is that like a celebration, or is that just a sighting, or is that celebrated in the tribe?
No, but you could. Like, for example, I'm working with my cultural advisors. So I've traveled to the Omaha Indian Reserve. I've heard Sasquatch, which they call Sitonga there, mimicking a whippoorwillow, I think it is, a night bird, and mimicking coyotes and mimicking this other night bird. I got to find out what the name of it is. And then when I've been in my traditional territories off northeastern Vancouver Island, when I lived in the bush for, over almost 2 decades, I heard Sasquatch mimic a bullfrog, a raven at night, an eagle at night, a bear, gruffing and hoofing, but I knew it was a Dzoonakwa, a Sasquatch. So others have talked about the mimicking of Sasquatch. So I have a Dzoonakwa mask that a friend of mine made. And we have a dance we do where it's called the echo mask, where when you dance it, you have a blanket over your body. When you come on the floor, you open it up and you're the echo mask. It's a face. And then when you cover up and you come out with the beat of the drum and you open up, you'll have a mouthpiece of an eagle and you soar like an eagle. It's a mimic dance. Cover it up, come out. Now you're a bear and posturing like a bear. And you cover up and you come out and maybe it's got the Thunderbird and moving like a Thunderbird. So what I'm doing is with that Dzoonakwa mask I have a mouthpiece of a black bear, another one of an eagle. We'll be carving more. I want to carve a coyote one on there. Bullfrog. I'll just have a frog on the mouthpiece. And when we perform on the conference circuit for Sasquatch conferences, like we do right now with our regalia, I have to go to my family and a composer I'll work with. So he'll compose in our language of Kwakwala a song telling you about how Tom has witnessed Dzoonakwa mimic eagle, raven, coyote, whippoorwillow, bear, bullfrog, and I'll perform that dance in its entirety in a big house to my family. And my family, my chief especially, will acknowledge it, basically rubber stamp of approval. Now I can bring that maybe to my father's memorial potlatch and perform it. And now it's part of my what we call kildas, our box of treasure, where it can be brought out for every one of my potlatches, then my sons, then when he has children and so forth. And it'll go on as every crest has gone on since the dawn of our creations. And that's how, something that's going to be spectacular because no one in the Kwakwaka'wakw tribes has a dance like that because they haven't traveled like I have to those different territories and states and provinces and heard Sasquatches at night mimicking other animals.
How about the hummingbird? Is that celebrated at all? Is that
Yeah,
talked about?
I do hummingbird art. It's actually one of my more popular designs ordered by people on wood bowls that I have that made by a lathe, and I put native designs on it, or I do paintings. But hummingbird's pretty popular. It's I asked my matriarch about it, and she said, "Yes, it's in our gildas, our box of treasure. We have title to that crest. We just don't use it because it's such a way down at the bottom of the tier. It's not a wealthy one. So, if we don't really display it, but we can create it in art."
Right, right. Do you guys use any certain tones in your songs? Do you want to like a frequency or like a key of E, or is that practiced at all?
I'm not a singer. Kwakwaka'wakw, the creator, gifted me with the photographic memory to retain legends, stories, history, and things that I'm interested to. I never did open the door or walk down the path of learning to drum and sing. I do want to, though, before I pass. I want to sit down with some of my cultural advisors and get them to teach me the Dzoonakwa song #1 so I can drum and sing on the stage and sing it, share it with people at the conferences. But I've never been a singer, so I can't answer those questions.
So the reason I'm asking is because we're catching this recording all across America of this hum. and it's coming in at 40 hertz. It's like a frequency. It's like a hum. It's the tone of a hummingbird wing, and that's why I'm asking about the hummingbirds and the tones. And some people call it the Bigfoot purr, others call it a hum, but it's being picked up all over the place, and this is like a little piece to a puzzle that we're trying to put together. So that's why I'm asking. I just wanted to know that the
Yeah.
hummingbird
No, I
was
don't know anything about that.
okay. So you also believe in the little people. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You want to tell? I would like to know a little bit about what about the little people. You don't hear too many stories about them, but So could you give a
You
little
don't
bit
hear
back?
too much about it because a lot of the Indian tribes, even with Sasquatch, they believe if you talk about it, it'll bring them towards you or your community family. With my tribe, Bokwus, translated to be wild man of the woods. So it's a small hair covered bipedal creature that moves very fast like a little dicky bird. It's always hiding behind its arm when you see it, moving fast. And it likes to go to the beach at low tide at night. And with its foot, it digs, reaches out with its legs. It digs in the sand and sediment. And it's all excited when it bends down and grabs the choli, the cockle. It's a type of shellfish like a clam, but it looks like a scallop and it's as big as a big potato. And it's a delicacy, favorite food of the Bokwus, the Sasquatch, and us humans. And Bokwus is known to eat those, but he's out there. And they say that when you're taught in life how to read the weather, the tides, look at the winds, and learn to swim, learn how to handle your canoe and everything, how to traverse a stream or a creek or a river, you listen to all the training. And then when you're out in bush like I was for decades, you don't drown. But if you do drown, you made a mistake. You didn't pass the test of learning the teachings that were passed on to you. And in turn, your soul is captured by the Bokwus, the keeper of the ghost world, another translation of Bokwus. And you're in limbo forever, eternity, because you screwed up. You don't get to go to heaven or hell. And that's what we call Bokwus, the keeper of the ghost world. But they say that when you're out in the forest and all of a sudden you look around and, oh no, turned around. I don't have my bearings. I don't know where I am. And they say pretty soon after many hours, maybe a couple days, you start getting panicky. You're running, tripping, falling. You're getting hungry. You're cold. And maybe when you wake up in early morning and there's dew on the ground or frost and you're freezing away and hungry and scared because you're lost, you see a beautiful platter, maybe a piece of cedar bark or fir bark or a piece of wood or on top of a log. You'll see beautiful, delectable foods, halibut, smoked fish, berry cakes, and you jump in there and you start eating it. Oh, that's good. And all of a sudden you notice and you start spitting it out because what you thought was delectable, beautiful food is worms, slugs, snakes, centipedes. It's too late. You've given in to your weakness, fear, and you've taken and consumed the ghost food. And Bokwus is there, laughing away, chattering, maybe a group of them, because they know they own your soul now. And you run away from the Bokwus and your fear and cold, you're running down the mountain and you part the branches and, oh, look, there's my boat anchored out. There's the smoke from my campfire. There's the smoke from my village. And you run down the mountain and half an hour later you part the trees and you look, you're further away than where you first looked an hour ago because you gave in to temptation and weakness and ate that ghost food of the Bokwus. And now you're captured. And it's impossible. It's hard, if not impossible, to get back to the warmth of your fires, the love of your family, the comfort of your bed, the full cupboards full of food. So we tell our young people, and this comes from a cousin of mine, Wayne Alford, aka Moose, a very famous Kwakwaka'wakw carver. and chieftain out of Alert Bay. He's always on TV and that, but he was on a documentary decades ago, and he said, "You got to watch out. There's Bokwus in the modern world: drugs, alcohol, gambling. So if you give in to temptation, hey, smoke this. That'll make you feel better. Oh, you like smoking that? Here, snort this. That'll make you feel good. Here, try smoking this. It's in a glass pipe. That'll make you feel real good. Come on, let's go to the casino. Oh, I was just there last night. Ah, come on, let's go to the casino. Yeah, okay. And when you drink the alcohol, keep it to a dull roar. If it starts to control you, the Bokwus, the modern day Bokwus of addiction, has caught you. And the drug dealer, the bartender, the casino floor boss, because eventually your addiction will make you steal, make you lie. And pretty soon your family's going to throw you out of the house. Your wife's going to get rid of you and divorce you. And all of a sudden, like that story, you're freezing cold in the rain, looking at the lights from your house out from outside. And all you can think about was, I remember when I used to have that warm bed with my mate, my wife. I remember the beautiful sound of my twittering, chirping, laughing children down the hallway playing. I remember my cupboards full of food and the refrigerator and my cold beer. But because I let that drug get the better of me, or gambling or alcohol, my wife and family got rid of me, sampled and danced with the Bokwus. So you got to be careful of them. And are they out there? Absolutely. Cousin of mine apparently ran into a bunch of them on an island. I guess I heard, through probably Moccasin Telegraph, we call it, but I heard a few years ago that he was the manager for a cleanup crew on an island that our tribes, three of us, worked together and made trails so that tourists that come up to our territories in the summer and kayaking and boating and sailboating, they can go to that island and walk the trails and see the cedar trees that the bark and wood was borrowed from my ancestors 100 years ago and beyond. Trees that were once 6 inches in diameter, that a woman went, or a man peeled bark off, are now 8 foot in diameter. And you can still see the culturally modified tree, the cat face where the bark is missing when it was 6 inches in diameter. Now it's 6 feet in diameter. So it's a famous island, Hansen Island, but he went in there and he had his work crew and he was with his GPS, I guess, walking the trails. And his job was to record where the fallen trees were and branches or washed out boardwalks, I guess. And he was encircled by Bokwus, and they were very aggressive towards him, and he had to run back to his boat. I went one time, I had someone ask me to look after a machine that's in a stream. It's in a plywood box, and it measures the water velocity. And you go there once every 10 days and you wind it up with a key, add some more ink, replace the round waterproof duck back paper on the graph, and it does its recording. So that was, they went on holidays for the summer and they wanted me to look after it for, I think it was about a month. So I went in there, nothing happened. Went in there the second time, it was low water, and the pink salmon were starting to go into the stream. And so when I got to the beach, it was like maybe 125 yards up to the mouth of the stream from the low water, because it was all shellfish flats, estuary. And I didn't bring my gun. I said, there's no grizzly bears here. So I just walked up, got to just getting up to the plywood box. All of a sudden I heard the hill beside me just erupted. All the thimbleberry and slough bushes and salmonberry bushes, ferns, you can see them moving. And I just thought, I must have spooked the sleeping family of otters, river otters. So I didn't think nothing of it, or raccoons. Opened the plywood box and I started changing the graph and adding some ink. And that's when all of a sudden I heard and like a chattering noise. I'm like, what the hell? So I finished my work, closed the lid, put the lock on, and I turned around, and where I walked through the pea gravel and sand are my footprints, and going across them are these little wee footprints about the length of a Bic pen. I'm like, holy Christ, Bokwus! And I just booked it out of there, man. I was like a lightning bolts shooting down that flat low water beach. You probably go back, measure the strides, they're probably longer than a Sasquatch. When I got to my boat, pushed it out, jumped in, pulled out with my oar, started my motor, and got the hell out of there, because I knew that by the tracks and was around Bokwus. I didn't want to be around them. They're scary buggers.
I guess so. What's the story about your partner in Bacchia? What is that? Something that you've seen and had made for you, Biggie? Is that what your partner in Bacchia?
Oh, behind me, Biggie. He's our mascot. People come here because SasquatchLegend.com is the largest Sasquatch store and museum in North America. I've been to Cliffs. He's close, but not as big as us. We got a big upstairs attic, got a huge back room. That's all our storage and where I do the silk screening and other work so we can put merchandise on the floor. So it's pretty big, but when Ken and Lori Hamilton opened it up over 4.5 years ago, they did R&D, research and development. They're living in Florida and Hawaii, and they have the plastic factory, like the plastic yellow signs behind me. They make everything plastic, plexiglass, display cases, you name it. Go to source1.com. You'll see what they make. But anyway, they got 2 of these factories, and they wanted to, as Ken said, my hobby, I wanted to open a Sasquatch merchandise store and / museum. So they did the R&D and found that this Highway 101 on the Olympic Peninsula, which does a circle from Seattle and Puyallup and Tacoma, and the only big city out here is I guess would be Port Angeles and Sequim. And then further down, I can't remember the name of that city down by the Columbia. But anyway, it's a place that people come from around the world, mostly from the United States, because it's the world famous Olympic National Forest, Hoh Rainforest, Nia Bay Macaw Reserve, and the Queets Rainforest, the Tree of Life, and the list goes on. This is a tourist central, 12 months of the year, not so much this time of the year, but then the April through until October, man, this place is busy. And of course, Olympic Peninsula, as far as I'm concerned, in all my travels, there's only one place that compares with the high concentration of Sasquatches and reports. And that's one of the Indian reserves I've been to. But the Olympic Peninsula, compared to other places I've been to, and Vancouver Island's on like Donkey Kong when it comes to Sasquatch, but this Olympic Peninsula is far better. And the reason for that is because there's very few people. People come here and go down Highway 101, the Upper Hoh River Road to go to the Hoh Rainforest, maybe out to Nia Bay, but they don't do like us locals. Go up the logging roads, raft down the rivers, go down the beaches. And when these people now that the word's out, chatter like a Sasquatch, people are talking about the new manager of SasquatchLegend.com. He's recognized as one of the leading experts on Sasquatch in North America, and he's had numerous encounters, and he has the Indian perspective. Well, now they're coming here like a gentleman did 2 days ago, and chatter, telling me about all the activity on his property. And then this guy invited me to his house an hour away, and we got trail cameras all over there because they're coming to his house because he's gifting them food, and they're hitting the walls. They're knocking on the window and his wife is showering, and the list goes on. And then you get all these other reports that are pouring in. This place is on with Sasquatch. And if anyone wants to go investigating, come out here. And I'm not working on the weekend, or I'll take a day off. And Chase, the young fellow that works with me, he can look after the store while we go investigating with FLIRs, night vision stuff, parabolic listening devices, trail cameras, P1000 Nikon with a big telephoto lens that zoom in on a hummingbird at 300 yards and you can see it perfectly. It's an amazing camera.
Yeah,
and
I got one
all
myself.
the other equipment I have as well. So, if you want to find Sasquatch, come out here, be smarter, charter an Indian guide, and get the Sasquatch Indian guide to help you along.
Awesome. All right, so we're getting close to the hour mark already. You lived in the bush for, you said, I don't know, good 20 years.
20 plus.
20 plus years. What was the hairiest interaction you had with a Sasquatch while you were living in the bush? And I don't mean like
Probably
hairy
when
as in hair on
I
your
built
head. I mean,
five, I built 2004, I built 5 small cabins, 10 foot by 8 foot, glorified garden sheds that look like native style longhouses with native designs painted on the front. And I did
Mhm.
sea kayak with the whales. And I had a 32-foot aluminum tour boat, 12 passenger water Lamborghini, I called it, because it was the same price in 2004 when I had it built. And at this camp, we did whale watching. And all of a sudden, in August, the end of August 2006, my sister wanted to come see my camp. So I brought her out there. And are you still there? Something happened to the screen.
no, I'm still here. You're just on solo.
Okay. Yeah. So anyway, I had my 2 young workers, a Dutch boy that was working for me and a young native boy, 17 years old, Ryan. The 4 of us went to the camp to do some cleanup work, clean the beach of driftwood. And I had a biggest power saw you can buy from Still. And I was cutting driftwood up on the beach. And some of these logs were 4 foot in diameter and 30 feet long. And then when the high tide came, that just before dark, 16-foot plus tide, we were pushing all the debris out so it would drift away and we can have gravel beach without logs for the kayak trip coming up in a few days. After I went through 2 full tanks of gas, I put the saw down when it ran out. Work was done anyway. And I said, Ryan, throw me a Pepsi. So he threw me a Pepsi from the cookhouse. And I sat down in a fold up lawn chair beside it, took a big swig of my Pepsi, put it down. And all of a sudden, to my right on the hill, 2 trees just started shaking. Cedar trees about 5 inches in diameter. So I looked at my dog, land claims. Yeah, I called them land claims. Treaties now. Everywhere he lifted his leg and peed, we were claiming it back as Indians. But I told land claims, 6 years old, golden lab cross, bush dog extraordinaire. Land claims, get. And he ran up the rock wall and he looked behind the 2 shaking cedar trees and he just pushed, did a 180 in the air, tail between his legs when he hit the ground, and he was just a yellow lab streak running to the dinghy and jumped in it. Well, the 2 trees are shaking and everyone's wondering what the heck's going on. And all of a sudden, this big boulder, and it was probably about half, almost as big as a smart car, come rolling down the rock hill and landed right behind my cookhouse. And I'm like, Ryan, get my gun. He goes, it's out on your turbo. And it was a 338 Seiko that I use for grizzly bears. So anyway, I'm like, well, give me an axe, get me a machete, get me something. And he came out with a machete and gave it to me. And I'm like, you and Hugo get in that dinghy. And my sister goes, I don't want to be here. And she turned and ran and she trying to do Jesus Christ walking on water. It was high tide, all the small driftwoods floating, and she's scrambling through it. And I'm like, slow down, you're going to break a leg. And I look behind my cookhouse, and there, between the V of 2 trees, this huge Sasquatch. And I had the wherewithal to look at his head and look at a branch and go, okay, that's where I have to measure from. And I backed away. When I got the house behind between me and that Sasquatch, I turned and you could hear that one still up there where the trees were shaking. I knew there was one behind my cookhouse. And then we heard one up behind the camp up the hill, maybe within 100 yards. I got in a dinghy and me and my sister got away, and we had 2 dinghies. We all went to the tour boat that was anchored out, untied the sidelines that we keep from it from drifting onto the beach. And the mooring boy tied it to the dinghies, started up the tour boat, and we got the hell out of there. But you could hear them screaming up there. The next day, I drove in through the logging road with a pickup truck and 2 of my buddies. And as we're going in, I'm drinking a gallon of water, driving. And when we got to the camp, we walked in the 10 minutes down the hill from the logging road. And when we got down the camp, we opened up with rifles and shotguns, shooting all over, making noise. And this is my place. I'm not leaving. And drinking a gallon of water, I was peeing all over behind my cabins, 5 cabins. And let the Sasquatches be known. You want a pissing match? Bring it on. We're going to dance and I will win. I'm staying here. And ever since then, me and the Sasquatches there have been at peace. I've even brought numerous expeditions in there, still do. And we call it our Sasquatch Investigation Camp now. And I had 2 professors from university see Sasquatch. So it's a place that's pretty happening. A lot of activity there.
How would you get a hold of you to get to rent those places?
SasquatchIsland.com. Learn it on my shirt right there.
Okay.
SasquatchIsland.com. Facebook to learn more so you can have a close encounter of the hairy kind. Go to SasquatchLegend.com, the store. It's an online store as well. Order my book. But the best thing is just go to SasquatchIsland.com, read my expeditions page, look at the other pages. It's not that big of a website, but very interesting, though. And then email me, phone me, book a trip. I'd be glad to take you out and get you a close encounter of the hairy kind. I've put 22 people on Sasquatch now, and I hold the record so far as the longest video recording of a Sasquatch on a shellfish beach with Stephen Major and Adam Davies on a yacht about 5 years ago, 16 minutes, 40 seconds. I have a trail camera picture of a Sasquatch knocking a trail camera off a stump, but the picture of him is him reaching down as it's lying on the forest floor. And you can see him, looks just like a chimpanzee with his big hairy right arm reaching down. And then we have the 3-minute video from Omaha Indian Reserve in daytime of a Sasquatch at about 120 yards walking across the edge of a mowed down cornfield.
All right. Well, I got one more question for you, and then I'm going to take some questions from the audience. If you guys got a question, I've been starring them as they've been going along, so I'm going to backtrack and grab the ones that were up. If you guys got any more questions, please all in caps, and so I can see them as being questions. I just got one more question for you, Tom. You got to be prepared to have you on an interview. I'll just tell you that, because you're a wealth of knowledge. You're very up on your heritage, you know, and it's very impressive. I applaud you. It's very impressive, and it's very interesting. I mean, the story about the little people was unreal, and we're gonna definitely have to have you back again if you like, and so we can learn more about all that. And I can start pronouncing the let me see if I can do it now. I gotta look at it up.
Well, next time we'll bring out my wife with the masks and regalia of Dzoonakwa and Bokwus, the little people.
Okay. All right. That's a
Make
deal.
history. I'll put the camera a little further back, and she'll be in front of Biggie here doing the dance and regalia like a potlatch.
All right. Well, that's the deal. That sounds great. That sounds great. All right. I'm just backtracking to find the questions here. I'm looking for the stars. All right. Here we go. Here's the first question. Miss Francesca E asks, where on Vancouver Island is the store? Planning a trip there to at least Tofino area.
The store is in Forks, Washington, on the Olympic Peninsula. From Vancouver Island, I go up there quite a bit to see family. I used to go up there commercial fishing and that. I go up there for Sasquatch investigations now. But Tofino, watch yourself. You got to pay for everything there, but breathing and toilet paper in the bathrooms. It's an expensive place. If I were to go to Vancouver Island, travel afar, and I wasn't from there and I'd never been there, I would go to Campbell River, on the east side central, and work my way north to Alert Bay and Port McNeil, Port Hardy. That's the frontier, the real Vancouver Island, not a tourist trap.
I forgot to ask my question as the last question I was going to ask when I went to these questions. My last question was, how important do you think it is that for people to be aware that the Sasquatch are real?
It's don't waste your time with the skeptic. You know, I got no use for skeptics, I see them come in here all the time and, oh, you don't believe in this, do you? I said, what? You saying us Indians are so full of shit, that's why our eyes are brown? There's over 660 tribes in North America. Everyone has a name for Sasquatch, beliefs, perspectives, understanding. Most of all, they all know that you respect the Sasquatch and never, ever think of disrespecting or killing them. And I see you got a crucifix on. I've seen Sasquatch over 6 times real close. How many times you seen your God? My God. I know he exists, but I believe more in Sasquatch because I see them.
All right. Okay, here's a question from North Cascadian. Does the Sasquatch of Vancouver Island have a history of kidnapping?
Yes, Muchalat Harry from the Muchalat tribe of the Dzoonakwa Nation on the west coast. There's one from my tribe but I don't know which family or exact tribe because it was from the archives I read it. There's been stories around Vancouver Island, just across from Vancouver Island by is Toba Butte Inlet, and that's where Ostrom was kidnapped in a sleeping bag by a Sasquatch back in the early 1900s. Oh, but we do have a rogue, which is a hunter-killer Sasquatch on the loose on Vancouver Island. If you look at Vancouver Island missing people, yeah, most of them are natural causes, accidents, and so forth. But there's still that small percentage that I think have been taken out by a rogue. Rest stop on the edge of the Vancouver Island North Highway, just north of Roberts Lake, north of Campbell River. It shut down. The cement outhouses ×2, cement picnic tables, cement garbage cans ×2 are all gone. Big cement blocks on the paved asphalt entryway into that rest stop. A woman was found there about 6 years ago, decapitated, left arm removed, body pummeled, no clothing removed, no sexual abuse. And it was hidden from the media, but the police told the family that we don't suspect the bear, wolf, or human. We think a Sasquatch killed your sister.
Oh, jeepers. Here's the statement or question, or Flat Rockland says, didn't a lady just get her arms ripped off up in North Vancouver Island recently?
Yep, that's the one about 5-6 years ago. One arm, left arm.
Okay. All right, so I got another question for you. I gifted here with the Sasquatch for 6 years, and I got sick, and I couldn't make it up to the gifting area for a month. I woke up one morning, and my wife was at the kitchen table, and she goes, look out the back window and tell me what's that's down by the door. And I went to my window, and I looked over the window. I said, I have no idea what that is. So I go down into the basement here where I live right now, and I walk out the door in back of me. I open the door, and there's a coyote leg at my back door, freshly ripped off the dog. Still warm. I got pictures of it. Why would they do that if it was a Sasquatch?
Sitonga, the Omaha called a Sasquatch, keeper of the medicine. Remember, I can only go so far, but numerous tribes, mine included, the shamans of old, and some even to this day, will disappear for months, years on end. And when they return, they have the knowledge to be the shaman, the doctor. They know the knowledge of the medicinal plants and remedies, be it roots, leaves, bulbs, flowers, what have you. And what they did was they went and had a Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall moment and interacted with the Sasquatch of their territory and learned the medicinal remedies as the Omaha term Sitonga, keeper of the medicine, teaches us. And I studied with an Omaha medicine woman, so I have a lot of knowledge on that connection between their Sitonga and the tribe members, and other tribes the same. So what human, even though they shoot tens, if not 100,000 plus coyotes a year in North America, how many humans actually eat it? So we don't even know what the medicinal qualities are to consume in coyote. And the Sasquatch probably knows. Like my people, we know that when you get bad arthritis and rheumatism and you can't move no more, you take a bathtub, you fill it with hot water and cooked klakastan, black sea lettuce, seaweed, and you pour in a gallon of klitna, ooligan oil, like a smelt that we make, and you put the afflicted person in there. And after 3-4 days, a week or longer of doing this repeatedly, that arthritis all bound up person is now walking again and got a bounce to their step. So there's medicines that Native Indian tribes are still using or have forgotten about. But because of that interaction with the Sasquatches in their traditional territories, it's still there. They're still the keepers of the medicine. And that's why when you're in northern Vancouver Island and you run into a Sasquatch, or in the mainland inlets where I hung out, yo, Weeksas, hello, Dzoonakwa, hello, how are you doing, Sasquatch? Because that's what my elder, who's no longer with us, taught me when I went to him and said, "What do I do? I keep getting crossing paths with Dzoonakwa out there. Should I be scared? Nah, not unless you run into a cannibal one. Then you got to be scared or dead and be a steaming turd in the forest floor." He goes, "But most of them just speak Kwakwaka'wakw to them. They understand." And when I was in Omaha Indian Reserve and I heard my Omaha Indian guides, "Aho, Sitonga," and you heard the Sasquatch say something back. So every Indian tribe, and that's why I teach people, if you want to have a close encounter of the hairy kind, the first thing you do is respect. Go respect your local Indian tribe where you're going to investigate. Learn protocol and permission from them and understanding. And ask them, how do you say hello? I come in peace. I mean no harm. I give you some food. Goodbye. So to me, if I were to say goodbye to a Sasquatch like I've done a few times, halakulasla, go in peace, or way, goodbye, like aloha. And when I said way to a Sasquatch one time, which is aloha equivalent to goodbye, I don't know. I couldn't understand what he said, but he answered me. And so that's what I recommend everyone do. Learn from the local Indian tribe those words, get the protocol permission from them and understanding if they're willing to share it. And the other thing is work with them, hire one of them to go bring you into the Indian Reserve or into their traditional territories. And that's where how we're going to get conclusive proof of Sasquatch. Lewis and Clark would still be stumbling and bumbling around North America right now, lost, if they didn't do one thing: hire one and many other Indian guides. Sacagawea being one of them, her husband Carbonu, who had some Indian blood on him. But be smarter, charter an Indian guide. And what better way than to go chatter with your local Indians, get to know them, befriend them. Next thing you know, you're out investigating. They're speaking their language. They're enlightening you with stuff that's usually zip ug Indian. Most North American Indians, when you shove a camera in their face, they're either BSing, a lot of them I find, or they're zip. "Oh, you got Sasquatches on your Indian Reserve?" "Yep." And that's about it. So be friendly to your local Indians, which in turn, what is Biggie and the Sasquatches out there? Just the other tribe. That's why we call them cannibal. We know what they are. They're humans. Because if a Sasquatch goes rogue or they like beans, eating beans, human beings, because they're tender and stupid and easy to catch, well, they're a cannibal. Well, it tells us that that's a human. It's just bigger, hair covered, toothless, has the black face and nocturnal vision. They are the humans of the night. They are the perfect human. We have stinky armpits when we don't shower because the doctors tell us that's a remnant when we had scent glands under in our armpits to excrete when we felt threatened or intimidated. Sasquatch still has it. So that's our ancestor. They still have the scent glands. And we know our ancestors used to be hairier and had big jaws and pronounced philtrums and ridges above their eyes and conical heads. And what is Sasquatch? Exactly that. So we are the inferior human. That's the superior one. Don't use fire, which in turn means they don't have Putin and Trump and others with fingers above nuclear buttons. They don't use weapon or tool, which in turn means they don't have mass warfare. There's no oral or written accounts of Sasquatches fighting clan to clan, tribe to tribe. Now, compare that to us. We are the inferior bipedal species of the planet. Sasquatch is the superior one. If we only could act like Sasquatch, be loving, more peace, no materialism, no clothing, and the list goes on. And that's what I advocate. And, someone said to me, "Tom, you're like a Sasquatch shaman." And I'm like, call it what you want. I'm here to Noosa, to tell my story, to share my understanding that I've gained and still gain from other tribes and other people, to let people use their well-developed frontal lobes and put two and two together, and let's start acting like Sasquatches and be more of a peaceful being.
Great advice. Great advice. So I was going to ask you to give one last going away, but you did it all on your own. So you're ahead of schedule. You knew what was coming. You can see the future too, Thomas. You can see the future too. So we're over the hour mark. I just want to say thank you so much for taking time. Like you did, he took time out to close the shop and got behind the camera for us tonight. So I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for everything that we learned tonight because it's pretty incredible. We're live, so to hear you and to listen to you and then to come back with something is kind of tough. I mean, without knowing your heritage personally, you wouldn't know where to go. But you made it pretty easy to understand and follow along with. So again, I thank you for that too.
Yeah.
So
Biggie and I. Yeah.
Right.
Don't
I'm going
forget-
to take one more question because this is a good one. Digger Dog asks, Thomas, do you think the Sasquatch has telepathy?
I've been within 15 feet of a Sasquatch 6 times, different ones. I've been around them over 30 times because I lived in bush. You got to remember, I went in for months on end. I've had a lot of experiences, but I've never had a mind speak to me. I've never seen them turn into an orb. I've never seen them cloak. I've never seen them walk up a ladder into a UFO. And I sure as hell never saw them moving glyphs out. So what I refer to as the woo-woo, and not out of disrespect, that door is closed to me. Why open a door that it hasn't happened? I've seen them harvesting food, leaving tracks, seen their turds, seen their urine stains in the snow, and had them chattering away all around me. I even heard one humming one time when I was lying in my cabin sleeping. It was picking plums behind the cabin in the plum trees, and it was humming away a little tune. And I thought, the hell's in my plum thing? So I opened the curtain, no flashlight. I opened the window a little bit and I could smell Sasquatch. I closed the window, laid back in bed and go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. You don't hear anything.
But what if you experienced it? Then what would happen? Would you change your tune?
And yeah, doors open then. I've seen orbs, but it was by abandoned Indian village that the people were decimated by smallpox. So to me, when orbs are seen, and I watch all the shows and I see the orbs filmed and that, they're lolilach, what we call ghosts. They're not Sasquatch. But you got to remember that I saw a long-legged black bear one time. I had my speedboat, 18-foot long aluminum motor up, painter line tied to my waist. I'm walking in with my hip waders and about 12 inches of water, bending down, picking up cockles, Charlie. It was low tide, just starting to rise before dark. That's why I was there, getting the feed of cockles. Favorite food of the Sasquatch. I looked over. I saw a very long-legged black bear. Next thing you know, 4.5 hours later, I woke up freezing in the fog, dark, tied to a bull kelp patch. That's a floating kelp that affixed to rocks out on the coast. And I didn't know where I was. I untied my boat using my sounder, my flashlight, and then all of a sudden recognized the islet and a couple trees. I used my compass and went back to my float house that I had at that time, went to bed. I'm missing to this day that 4.5 hours. Something happened that would traumatize me so bad that all I remember is a long-legged black bear. I don't know what happened. People say, hey, Tom, go get hypnotized. I'm like, you gotta remember, I got a lot of skeletons in my closet. Last thing I need is someone hypnotizing me and blackmailing me because I sang like a birdie about some things I did back in the past. Can't plead the fifth in Canada. So anyway, I call it the mental band-aid. When you see a Sasquatch, as I have, and I've been as close as I am right now to Biggie when I come jump from behind my cabin and on my territories back in 2012 in the same summer, popped out of a pile of leaves, or in the fall, popped out of a pile of alder leaves and looked at a Sasquatch that was trying to sneak into my camp to steal my garlic and apples again, but I scared the bejesus out of him when I come out of those leaves just after dark. We were 5 feet away. And, I wasn't scared then, but because I'd been around Sasquatch enough. But the first couple times I saw a Sasquatch, oh, my heart was pounding, my legs were shaking, my mouth got dry, so it's seeing a Sasquatch. And I know from being a grizzly bear hunting guide, the first half dozen times I brought down grizzly bears, I almost peed my pants. That mans you up real fast. That's scary. But then to see a Sasquatch up close is very scary. And if they get aggressive, which I think that one did, why I'm missing 4.5 hours, it's called the mental band-aid. You don't hear people who are sexually abused or airplane crash survivor. You don't hear them every time you see them. Oh, let me tell you about my plane crash. Oh, let me tell you about when I was sodomized. Mental band-aid shuts it down. That's how the mind deals with it. And I think a lot of the woo-woo, orbs, UFO flying, cloaking, mind speaking, glyph, it's all over the place. I think that was the individual got so bejesus scared that the mental band-aid kicked in to help them deal with that very traumatic event of seeing a Sasquatch. And they saw an orb. They saw a cloak.
Could very well be, my friend. I think the orb is a whole thing to its own. It's a known phenomenon. That's what I believe in the orb. I don't think the Sasquatch turned into an orb, but I don't know. I've never seen one turn into an orb. You know what I mean? So I can't say. So I just leave it where it is, and hopefully one day we'll figure it all out. Right?
Yep.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much. I'm just going to throw you backstage for a little bit. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody, and then I'll say goodnight to you backstage. So
thanks a lot, everyone.
Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, from Sasquatch Island, Mr. Thomas Sewid. All right. If you did not learn a little bit of something about something from this show, I don't know what to say. I was very impressed. I was very, very impressed. To be prepared for something like that, you would have to do probably college and touch up on all that. But it was very, very interesting. And I want to say thank you to everybody for showing up tonight. Again, if you guys don't know who Christy Leslie is, whoops, that's not the one. Hold on. Here we go. Miss Christy Leslie just passed away. And again, this show is dedicated to her. She was spitfire of a lady, and she will very much be missed. So, and that's about it. That's all I got. I'm off next week. I'm on call. Let me just check on who's coming up next. Where is my calendar? Next would be not on this phone. Figures. Wait, and next one. Oh, Mr. Thomas Powell will be our guest next. So in 2 weeks, Tom Powell will be our guest. Just came out with a book on Untold, so it'll be a great interview and another great show. So let's get to be where we need to be, and now we are there. So you know what comes next, as my friend Larry says, get in the woods, people.
I'm trapped inside a fake reality. Better days will never come for me.